Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley from Quest, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Reconnect Dive Deep session. Please feel free to drop in any questions you may have in the Q&A box located in the Zoom toolbar, and the speakers will address those at the end of the session. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to Randy, who will kick things off.
Hey, thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. I'm going to talk for a very brief time today because we only have a 30-minute demo scheduled. And that's usually how much time I take talking just about myself. So I'm not going to do that to you. I'm obligated to mention SpearMC and how we are all things PeopleSoft. But if you are interested in learning more, I suggest you go back to any one of the many presentations that we've done this week and replay it just for the section talking about SpearMC so that I can meet my obligation, okay? Meanwhile, what we're gonna be doing today, we're gonna be talking about month-end close in PeopleSoft. Everyone has a month-end close procedure. The vast majority of our customers still use Microsoft Excel as a tracking mechanism. What Sanjay is going to present is how we can use the activity guide feature, particularly the style of checklist and an activity guide, to monitor, track, and collaborate on the month-end process, all within PeopleSoft, all within your financial system of record. Instead of some outside tool like Excel, we can do that, track it, notify within the PeopleSoft system using delivered functionality of activity guides. And so what we'll start with is we'll show you the Excel spreadsheet that probably all of you use. Many of you have different styles, right, of those, and how we took that and we then migrated that into the specific activities, tasks that show up on our month-end activity guide in PeopleSoft. All right. So I promised I wouldn't talk much. That's it. Literally, I'm going to monitor the questions because it's only 30 minutes and because we have a scripted walkthrough. I'm going to monitor those, but I'm not going to interrupt Sanjay. In fact, I'm going to put myself off on mute so I'm not tempted. Sanjay will go through the process. When we get to the end, he'll show you what it looks like as users to do the month-end, their tasks in the month-end close checklist. And then he'll show you what it looks like with the setup. And it's a very, very detailed setup. We should have time for questions at the end. So don't be shy. Put your questions out there. Just know that they're going to get answered at the very end and not intermittent within the timeline that we have. All right. I already talked too much. Sanjay, sir, the floor is yours.
Randy, just to confirm, you can see my screen at the Excel file.
See it clearly, yes.
Awesome. So the way we are going to approach, hi everyone, just to introduce briefly, I'm Sanjay. I've been working in the PeopleSoft domain for over 25 plus years, done all kinds of roles, including being part of the product development team at PeopleSoft. What we are focusing on today is the month-end close. Because activity guides in itself is a very big topic, and with all kinds of features within activity guides. What we are doing is we are taking into our multiple clients where we have worked with activity guides. We have taken that experience and tried to come out with some of the best practices or examples, because a lot of organizations that we interact with, somehow don't use activity guides, and like Randy said, still rely on Excel. And we are showing an across the organization close activity guide, which is more comprehensively built towards the end of the cycle. But there are certain organizations that we work with, which also have mini activity guides within their own modules or groups, where for assets or leases or AP, they follow a whole bunch of steps internally for reconciliation, etc. that they do. But this is a good view of some things that happen across the organization. Having said that, what I wanted to do was start with a sample like for one of the organizations, and they were pretty structured, and they had, I mean, again, this is uh, taking snippets from different, what best things we have seen from clients. So this was goes across multiple organizations. I'm going to focus on this column for a start, where you'll see that the tasks over here are going across multiple organizations. You have this first two tasks that are going across general ledger. Then there is something in AP, then there's something in AR, then again back to GL. So there is a lot of hand holding. And this is one of the places where a lot of balls are dropped across organizations, or there's dependencies, where people are waiting and trying to reach out to each other for where do things stand. So again, like I said, and this again close, as we all know, goes through multiple days. There is over here a scenario that we have drafted of things going into 7 odd days. Now again, it can, every organization is different. They have different things they do on different days. But I hope I'm making sense so far with respect to saying that how things are flowing across different organizations. There are tasks from GL where, they're doing the journal generation. They're building the combo edits on a daily basis, just in case, they've changed any chart fields, chart accounts, or anything else. There is AP posting. There is expenses, expense accrual pieces going in out here. And there's some inventory stuff also. So this is what you are going to see on the screen is a representation of this scenario. Okay. So having said this, I'm going to just increase the screen size a little. Now, of course, as you see, we have not done all 7 days out here. We've just built a prototype with some in our demo environment. And like I said again at the beginning, our different clients have different scenarios that we have worked with. So in this scenario, what you see at the beginning is your last day of the month, where they're starting with some expense general generation. If you remember from the Excel file, we saw some of the combo data stuff. There is voucher bill. There is, just a receivables update. Now you'll see all of this, some of them have different signs next to that. What I'm going to start with the green one right over here is an indication of this task is currently in progress. As in somebody started this task and it's in progress right now. So anybody who logs in, and I'm going to log in as different users and then show you how the screen looks like, will know, okay, whether the expense journals have been generated or not. I may or may not have access to this based on my ability. Like, so if I'm from the AP team, I may not have access to the expense journal generation task itself to execute it, but what I will have access to is at least seeing where it stands in the broader checklist of tasks that we are working on. Now, some of the tasks you see that they're showing as overdue, and it's largely because the scheduled date that we have on this task is prior to today. So that's why a lot of the tasks are showing as overdue. Now, some of the tasks with the asterisks that we have, they are required tasks, right? So that means the activity guide will not be marked as complete unless this required task has not been completed. Okay. So again, just highlighting. So the asterisk indicates the tasks that are completed. The the green is indicating the tasks that are currently in progress. This information that you see over here on this task, it says the task is dependent. So what this means is this task is dependent on a different task, and you cannot do this task unless the predecessor task has been completed. Okay, or it is telling you that, hey, this task has prior task is still pending. So again, we talked about the required tasks, we talked about overdue tasks, okay, and we talked about this dependent tasks, okay. Now, you may also have a scenario where some of the tasks are repeated across multiple days, right? So for example, I have general generation over here on day one, as well as general generation on day two, okay. Now, also what may happen is you may have scenarios where what you are doing is that the task may be running through your process scheduler behind the scenes, that you do not want our tasks where you are manually coming in and completing them, because there may be a lot of tasks in the life cycle that are actually running behind the scenes through a process scheduler. Okay. And if there is some kind of an external trigger you want to do from within the system, that's also possible, that where you can link external URLs. So I will show you those setups when I get to there, when I show you the setups. But what I'm trying to show you is the actual execution, and then show you some of the things of how we got to here, right? How did this activity guide come about? So any task that we do, like for example, this expense general generation, I'm going to, for now, just going to mark it as complete. Okay. So when I come to the next set of tasks, so it's showing me a progress, how many tasks have been completed. I'm also going to go and mark I'm not going to execute each of the steps. Okay, I'm just going to go and mark some of the tasks as complete. Okay. So I'm also going to mark the voucher bill task as complete. Okay. Now, if you notice, when I mark the voucher bill task as complete, immediately the request receivables update changed to an overdue task from a dependent task, and it removes the sign that the previous task, it is waiting for a previous task to complete. Okay, so I'm going to, from here, like we have talked, and not just so you'll see over here you have a lot of processes. You may have also some data entry pieces that you want to do, right? That may be required along the life cycle of your course, that people can organize. And again, to highlight, you have now most of the first two is really, you have GL and AP, like we talked about. I'm just going to focus a little on the AM processes over here, right? Now over here, this is a group of tasks that primarily just belong to a totally different group. And when they come in to do the task, they typically will know, or not just know, we can also create the dependency saying that, hey, you cannot do the depreciation processes till you've made sure that the assets have been created from the last voucher post. So you can have a voucher post dependency, then you can have the running the interface staging table dependency to create the assets, and then the depreciation process dependency. And they can see exactly where this is in the process, where this is in the life cycle of the task. So what I'm going to do is, from here, okay, I'm going to jump into the aspect of showing you the actual creation of the activity guide. And the activity guides have a combination of processes, your data entry, and I just wanted to highlight one more thing, which is if you're running intermediate queries or reports or reconciliation reports. In this case, we have put in a query out here in between, where you can run after a voucher posting, there may be a step that you're doing where you're running this GL detail queries at this point of time, right? And once you're done with that, you can mark it as complete. But it's a combination of your processes, your data entry, and your queries, whichever way you want, or even external processes, like I said earlier. So at this point, I'm going to actually switch into the activity guide creation process itself, like where we have configured this, rather than, I'm not going to create one from scratch, but I'm just going to show you what we have created. So we're going to go into the activity guide template. There is a lot of delivered ones from PeopleSoft, right? Especially some of the people in AP, people may have seen the payment request, which is a different kind of activity guide. It is not really a checklist kind of an activity guide, but that really involves a step-by-step process of whatever it needs to create a new payment request, from supplier creation to all the way to the payment process. But again, that's a different format. So PeopleSoft does allow multiple types of activity guides. And as some people may know, that activity guides first came around in PeopleSoft as a technical tool. And then over a period of time, PeopleSoft built it into a configurable item. So whatever we are showing is the configurable piece of it. And if somebody wants some special unique features, there can always be some programming allowed for. So activity guides have both a technical component as well as a functional component. A lot of things, like for example, a month-end activity guide can be done just through configurations. Doesn't necessarily involve any coding. Okay, unless you want something very special, a special feature that you want to code. So I'm going to reduce the screen size just a little so that this is more readable. So this is the setup of the activity guide that I just showed you in the deployment piece. Once I've shown you this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as a different user and show you that life cycle of the other activity guide that the activity guide implementation that we were saying. So what you're seeing over here is the different steps. Again, if you remember, these are all the different steps, right? I'm not going to go and talk about each one of them, but this then further talks about, okay, this is a component, PeopleSoft delivered component. If, a lot of people may be familiar with services that are linked with components that you can create and link and show them. The next part of it, we talk about, okay, so basically each of these items have their own item ID internally. You remember we talked about required and not required pieces. So this is the required and not required pieces out there. And this piece is over here is what controls the security, which determines whether you have access to this checklist or item on that checklist or not, whether you can click on it or not on that within that component. One of the things that also I wanted to show over here is this configure related data, right? Where it's just basically, if you wanted to have some specific actions designed around them, you can do that. But this one is I'm showing more in the context of dependencies, where earlier we saw for the receivables update one, there was this dependency we had over there, which said that it could be done only after the voucher build process has been done and the rule assigned with it, whether it's start to start, finish to start, whether, I mean, if you're familiar with some of those project management terms, this kind of goes in as to when it can start and when it can finish. So we talked about the user assignment and status. So we talked about the required fields and the security around it. Schedule information is more around where, like you saw, the task is overdue is because this is a start and end times defined. If the task is executed within that range, then it is good. It's good to go. Otherwise, it will show that red flag, right, which says that it is overdue. Also, again, it's all about how you configure your system. This at the end of the month, once you finish a month and close and you go into next month, this dates can be auto reset too, so you do not have to go and manually reset it at the end of every month. A number of these things again. So some of these tasks and require some knowledge of PeopleSoft, technical knowledge of PeopleSoft, as in not that you have to create anything, but it's definitely things that you need to know which service ID you are linking to it. And if you need to create one, or if there's one existing in PeopleSoft that you want to use. Again, this is just purely a linkage of whether it's a PeopleSoft component, a PeopleSoft query. We earlier talked also, if there's a non-PeopleSoft link that you want somewhere in there and you want to go somewhere outside of PeopleSoft, that is possible too, right? Or again, if there's app class URL, again, this gets into a little technical side of the app class URL and all that. PeopleSoft, where that's the question where you have to draw whether you want it totally configurable or you have certain things which are pretty internally like neat or some of the technical stuff. Questionnaires are where you can link questions or add questions somewhere in the process. Now there can be complex questions, but again, that would require some customization. Or there can be yes, no questions that can kind of part of default questionnaire functionality that is delivered with PeopleSoft. Now, the last piece is the audits, right? As a lot of people from accounting, we need to know the different audit pieces of this. Let's do when this was created, when this whole activity guide was first created, who was the last person who worked on the task? So like, for example, if somebody worked on this task and updated it, then you get to see when was the last time a task was worked on within this activity guide. And there's just a grants log is showing who was given what access at what time, which we haven't changed anything, so that's why there isn't anything out there. And this is not grants, but this is changing any of the data within the activity guide. The earlier screens that you saw after the first time creation, that is tracked through this audit. So if somebody changes how your activity guide runs or is running, that can be checked through that. So again, then the next set of things is around deployment, which I was not planning to go into. I mean, activity guides is a huge topic, but what we are trying to show you again is what it takes, or some of the things that go into a month-end activity guide creation. We wanted to show you the execution. So again, going back into the execution mode, because I kind of showed you one person running the activity guide. And if you see 3 of the stars are now marked as complete, right? It shows that there's total 22 tasks and 3 are complete. Now, what I'm going to do is log in as a different person. Okay. And I'm going to show you what happens if I do not have access to everything. And that's going to be the last piece of it. And then I'm going to open it for Q&A, and we're left with only 6 minutes in this. So I'll try to be sensitive and try to finish it fast. So now I logged in as a different person, and what you will see is like I can now run the request receivable update, which is I have access to this function. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I don't have access to this function, so I can't run it. But if you see the functions that I do not have access to, I cannot even click on them. I can see them, but I cannot run any of them. So I need to have access to be able to run a process to be able to do the next set of steps. Also, as we have dependency on tasks, right? So I cannot execute beyond a certain point of a task because I have not run the request receivable update function. But you also see the other piece of it, that when I log in, I can see that the first 3 tasks are already complete. So having said this, also now see the Depper Calc process is independent. It's not dependent on the other task being complete. That's how we have configured it right now. So that's why I was able to click on it and I'm able to execute on it. Okay. So having said this, okay, I'm actually going to open it up to the floor to ask any questions. I know we have only 5 minutes left, but this pretty much covers everything that we wanted to show. We wanted to show different people logging in. We wanted to show how the synergy works. And of course, there is other things like there's notifications, etc. in the process. If a task becomes overdue or if when a task is completed, there can be notifications sent out. So there is less of, that collaboration is more from the system and people don't necessarily have to log in. People don't have to necessarily call each other just to make sure that they're doing a handover of tasks.
Sanjay, thank you for that walkthrough. As brief as it is, a 30-minute session never feels long enough, does it? We have 4 minutes left. I was going to say 4 seconds. We have many seconds, 4 minutes left on the clock. I don't have questions, so I'm feeling a little bit neglected. If you're out there and you've got questions, please throw them out there on the question and answers. We've got time to answer those questions. Let me know you're out there. Let me know you're listening, and happy to answer any and all questions as they come up. Sanjay, thank you for the walkthrough. I know it's an incredibly complex topic. In fact, we did an hour-long presentation yesterday, and I still feel like we were rushed in getting all of the topics discussed. We think that it is an amazing opportunity to use the system that you have, your financial system of record, to track the execution and completion of your month-end task list. I have a question. Will the activity guide still work if we move to OCI? Yes. The answer is this is a part of your PeopleSoft configuration. And so it doesn't matter where you're hosted, whether you're on-prem or hosted in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This activity guide, and any activity guide that you deploy using the PeopleSoft framework, will continue to work. Great question. Thank you for that. So far, it's the only question we have. There are so many benefits to automating the month-end close and having it in your internal system, from the time efficiency to just overall visibility for anyone who is involved in the process, automatic notifications when it's your turn to go, reducing the opportunity for errors or omissions. So yeah, what pump did activity guides become available? They originally came out way back in Image 23. That's when the framework was delivered. Oracle's been delivering a number of activity guides across images since then. This particular activity guide was built by SpearMC, so it's not available in the delivered functions in PeopleSoft. Yeah, so there's questions on what else could we do this for. It's limited only by your imagination. All 3 pillars have some delivered activity guides. I think in our presentation yesterday, there was a slide that highlighted activity guides that are available in financials and HCM. We can update that slide to include the campus solutions pillar and show what's out there for that. Questions around, could it be done for things like student financials, monthly billings, anything where there's a regular task list, we think is an excellent candidate for looking at the activity guide as a way of sort of streamlining that process. Not just streamlining, but tracking and keeping your audit trail, that in fact, all of these processes that might be considered a part of your internal control structure have been completed, and completed on time or within the range of time that we expect. Okay, Another question is the functionality to update the status of process delivered. In other words, when a process is a part of the task, if the task is a process in the system, does it automatically get updated in the system? I'll throw that question out to Sanjay. Do you know the answer?
We have to manually update it. I think it's custom code. So far, what we have done is with our clients is they have manually updated it.
Okay.
I know
And
people
so-
don't always keep delivering new stuff. So
Yeah, and I think that point is manually, you make the adjustment, you validate it ran, but you still have to flag it as complete. We don't have, without customizing, we don't have the ability to automatically update it based on the process. One last question, and we're over time. Does PeopleSoft deliver activity guide for month end close? That I think I answered no. We had to build it. It's not delivered by Oracle at this time. Maybe they'll take a look at what we built and make it available. Otherwise, talk to us and see if we can fast track it for you. We're enjoying this particular tool on a number of fronts. We just thought that the month-end close was a perfect fit. We're over. Ashley, I'm sorry, we went long.
and just one more thing, Randy, to your last point. This is what we have done is totally configurable. There is no customization in it.
Yes, correct.
There
Correct.
can be some custom things that you want, but what you saw was totally configured.
Yep. Thanks for the questions. So glad, so glad that we were out there and listening in. Ashley, I think we've hit our limit. We've gone over, and thanks for letting us extend by a couple of minutes. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.